Bonjour tout le monde, welcome to our coffee break catch up. I am Mark and I am delighted to be here, and I'm just going to sort my computer so that you can see what is going on. We have got a special coffee break catch up coming to you today from Scotland. It's a rainy Thursday afternoon here in Scotland, but wherever you're watching, whatever the time is and whatever the weather is doing, we hope that you're having a good language learning day filled with coffee breaks. Now today we've got a special event because it's not just our normal catch up. We are also joined by Pierre-Benoît, and I'm just going to see if we can bring him in here to say hello. Bonjour, monsieur.
Bonjour à tous, comment allez-vous? J'espère que vous allez bien. Moi, ça va très bien, merci.
Et moi aussi, moi aussi. Right, we'll get rid of him just now because he's not going to stay on here for the moment.
Ah, c'est gentil.
He will be back very soon when we're going to do our French language catch-up, when we're going to be looking at French questions. So if you have a question about the French language, then make sure that you post a question. We've had a couple by email already. People responding to our email that we send out to let you know that the coffee break catch-up is happening. So we've got a couple of questions already, but we are looking forward to hearing your questions. Let us know who you are and where you're watching from so that we know that you're watching from wherever you are. It's good to see some familiar faces already. Barbara, hello. Nice to see you today. And we are looking forward to hearing your questions, and we will be getting to the questions in just a moment. But let's, for now, find out what's happening in this week's Coffee Break Catch-Up. First of all, of course, as ever, we are starting with the Coffee Break News and letting you know what's happening in Coffee Break languages with our latest podcast episodes, our latest videos, and some news of some new courses that are starting soon. We will be having our special edition French Q&A session, so you can ask Pierre-Benoît your questions. Again, if you have any questions, please do let us know already. You can send them directly to us by sending a comment, by posting a comment, and Pierre-Benoît will start to have a look at these questions already. So if you've got a question, let us know what your question is. It can be about anything. It can be about grammar. It could be about vocabulary. It could be about French culture. It could be about French, well, Pierre-Benoît's taste in music, which is questionable, I have to say at times. But you can ask a question about anything, and we'll be happy to answer it, hopefully. So after that, we'll come back and do, oh, there he is. That's the wrong button I pressed. After that, we'll come back and do the cultural roundup to let you know what's happening this weekend in somewhere in the French, Spanish, German, Italian-speaking world. So that's what's coming up. Don't forget to post your questions if you have any about the French language. And of course, if you have other questions about Coffee Break, then we're happy to answer them. It's a live show. Things can go wrong. We hope that things don't go wrong. But for now, let's get straight on with our news. Let me see if I'm going to press the right button. It's news time. Okay, it's time for our coffee break news, and let me see if I can bring in the right set of slides. Here we go for coffee break news. First of all, we're continuing our question of the week feature. Today, we just posted out on Facebook and on Instagram a new question, and we're inviting you to answer the question. This week's question is, que fais-tu de ton temps libre? What do you do in your spare time? Was machst du in deiner Freizeit? ¿Qué cosa fai nel tempo libero? ¿Qué haces en tu tiempo libre? So we're asking you, what do you do in your free time? Now, as ever, our colleagues who speak French, German, and Spanish and Italian, they have answered the question, and that gives you a little bit of a taster, an idea on how you could answer the question. So make sure you check out their videos on Instagram or on Facebook, depending on which language you're learning. On Instagram, we put all the languages. On Facebook, we'll put the individual language that you're working on that page. And there you can post your response about what you do in your free time. And it's a great way to practice the language, to practice your use of the language, and of course to listen to some native speakers speaking the language. So we've got Susie, we've got Olivera, we've got Francesca, and we've got Sophia. And they're answering that question on the Instagram and the Facebook pages. Next up, we've got our 1-minute courses. This week we pushed out the 1-minute Mandarin course, and the 1-minute Mandarin course is, again, like all of our 1-minute courses, a short course in the basics of Mandarin Chinese. Now, the topics covered, as ever, include things like presentations, introductions, numbers, talking about yourself, and making yourself understood, saying that you're learning a little bit of Chinese, that you speak a little but you don't understand, things like that. So if you want to just get the absolute basics of Mandarin, or indeed any of the other languages that we've already put out on YouTube, then you can head over to the YouTube channel where you'll be able to find that content and learn a little Mandarin. So that's 1 Minute Mandarin now available on the YouTube channel. I also wanted to mention our Coffee Break Co-Pilot course. Now, this is a course that we have introduced to help you take your first steps in learning a new language. And the Co-Pilot course is a 14-day course that accompanies you in your first steps of learning that language. So giving you tips and tricks and ideas about how you can practice your language learning. And now this is aimed at absolute beginners in a language, so it goes along with our Season 1 courses. And it's not specific to a particular language, it's more about language learning and teaching you the ideas behind language learning. Now, the Co-Pilot course until the 31st of August is actually available for free to anyone purchasing for Season 1 courses. That's an example of the handouts there. So there are worksheets, there are videos, there are daily videos and challenges and inspiration. And this is free with all Season 1 purchases until the 31st of August. So you have until, well, the next couple of days. What date are we on today? It's the 29th. So we've got 2 days left where you can take advantage of this special offer where you get the Coffee Break Co-Pilot course free with any purchase of a Season 1 course. So don't forget to take advantage of that. Just a quick roundup on our dates now for the forthcoming magazine episodes. We're very excited to be launching our Coffee Break German magazine tomorrow. So the first episode of the Coffee Break German magazine goes out tomorrow, and the Coffee Break German magazine, like our other magazine podcasts, features a text and a focus on that text in German. Andrea and I discuss the text. The first text is about the German concept of Tatort, which is a German and Swiss and Austrian crime show that's part of every German family's tradition. Everyone sits down and watches it on a Sunday night, well, the older members of the family at least. So this is a text all about Tatort, and that is going out tomorrow, and we'll discuss the text. And it also deal with a phone-in from a listener, so a listener's question. And then we'll also be looking at some other interesting idiomatic expressions in German for you. So German learners, be aware, as long as you're subscribed to the Coffee Break German podcast, then you'll automatically get that. And of course, you can access our podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, anywhere that you get your quality audio content. So find that the Coffee Break German magazine will appear as a new season in the Coffee Break German podcast feed, and you'll be able to get that starting tomorrow around about 6 p.m. UK time, so 1 p.m. Eastern and about 10 a.m. Pacific. So that's the Coffee Break German magazine starting tomorrow. Now we also have new episodes of our Coffee Break French magazine coming, and that's next Monday. And on the Coffee Break French magazine, the next episode is focusing on the topic of les BD, les bandes dessinées. So these are cartoons, very, very popular, animated or graphic novels, if you like. Very, very popular in lots of French-speaking countries. So that's our topic for the next episode of the Coffee Break French magazine, returning after our summer break on Monday. Finally, in terms of the new podcast content that we will be launching, we also have the Coffee Break Italian magazine. And the Coffee Break Italian magazine goes out a week on Monday, so that's the 9th. And in this episode, we are focusing on the dance, the tarantella. So if you're interested in dance, then that one's a very interesting one, where we're talking about the history of the dance and how it came to be and what it's got to do with spiders, basically. So the tarantella, an Italian dance, and that's what Francesca and I are focusing on in our content in episode 6 of the Coffee Break Italian magazine. So those are the latest episodes that are coming up. Now we also include questions from listeners in all our Coffee Break magazine podcasts. And if you have a question, then you can send that question to us. Now we're going to be dealing with some French questions right now. So if you've got a question in French, then make sure you post that in the comments, and we'll do our best to have a look at those questions in just a moment. But if you would like to ask a question for the podcast, then you can do so by going to coffeebreakquestions.com or by calling our voicemail line. And I'll just show those numbers now. The coffee break question. Oh no, I'm skipping that slide for the moment. The coffee break voicemail line in the UK is 0141 416 6880. In the US, it's 347 474 6880. And in Australia, 08 7200 6880. Now, there was a slide back there that I skipped. You might have seen me skipping that slide because we have got some exciting news for intermediate learners of French and Spanish. On the 1st of October, we're starting our new class of the Masterclass. Now, this is our 6-month course, and the Masterclass runs for 6 months with 6 modules over the course of October through to March. And if you have already completed the Masterclass, then this is the same one that you've already done. We've not yet launched our second Masterclass, that's coming, but our first Masterclass, we're repeating it again. So a new class of the Coffee Break French and Spanish Masterclass, and that's starting on the 1st of October. So keep an eye open on all our social channels and on your email for more information about the Masterclass, which is a fantastic way to help you take your French or Spanish to the next level. That is all our coffee break news, and it's time, therefore, to turn our attention to French. If you're a French learner, stick around. If you're not a French learner, stick around because some of this may well be applicable to your own language that you're learning. And we've also got some announcements, including our coffee break mug winners at the end of the show. So we're going to split off and do some French work just now. So if you're a French speaker, then stick around. And we will be able to help you with that in just a moment. So let's move to our talking point this week, which is, of course, French, le français. Et voilà, nous revoici. You're on camera now, Pierre-Benoît, so just
Bonjour.
be careful, okay?
Rebonjour alors.
Rebonjour. So, alors, on va parler en français quand même un petit peu. Comment ça va?
C'est très bien, et toi?
Très bien, merci. Content d'être ici encore une fois.
Bien sûr.
Mais aujourd'hui, nous avons des questions, n'est-ce pas?
Oui.
So, we've got some questions. I'm going to have a quick look through our list of comments here to see if there's any questions for the time being. But perhaps you could make a start with one of the questions that we've had by email already. So, if you want to explain what the question.
Yes, we had an email, and the person is asking, does a with an accent mean at, to, or n? Because it seems that it means something different in every sentence that the person has read. So that's quite a tricky one. So let's go for it. Usually you use a, when you would go to a specific place, okay, or you would already be in a place, in a stationary place. I explain, for example, if you want to use a, like je suis à Glasgow, d'accord, or je suis à Paris, okay, or je suis à la cathédrale, or je suis à l'office du tourisme, d'accord. So that would be what for a stationary, just after the verb je suis. Okay, you could use it as well for j'habite. J'habite à Paris, j'habite à Glasgow, j'habite à Pornic, d'accord, comme nous avons déjà vu dans les vidéos. Voilà.
So far we're looking at as meaning in a sense. Yeah. So I live in Glasgow, or today I'm in Glasgow, I live in Pornic, as you said. But there are sometimes other translations of because it doesn't always mean in, is that correct?
Très bien. Sometimes it does mean as well, it goes to, for example, je vais. Donc, je vais à la plage. I'm going to the beach. Je vais, comme je disais tout à l'heure, à la cathédrale. Je ne sais pas si vous êtes à Paris, je vais à la cathédrale de Notre-Dame, d'accord? So in that case, it means I'm going to. Okay, so you've got purpose. You're not stationary. You're actually moving. So you would use that after a movement verb. Okay, so je vais, the verb aller.
So what about when we translate into French? Because it's not always translated as a. If I say, for example, I live in Glasgow, then yeah, we're going to use a. But what about if I am speaking in French?
Ah, je parle en français.
Ouais.
Ah, ça, c'est beaucoup plus difficile. Ok, ça c'est encore une autre façon d'utiliser, de traduire the word N.
Oui.
Okay, but we have it as well with other sentences. Like if you want to say in the morning, okay, that again you would not use "a," you would have to use a different word. But I think the person here was asking about "a" with an accent.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, when do you translate it as to or in?
Yeah.
So usually if it's stationary, okay, that will be in, and if you're going somewhere, it's to. And I think it's easier to keep it that way.
Okay.
And remember the "a" with the accent. Okay, do not get confused with the "a" without an accent. We all know about that, obviously.
Exactly.
Mark?
Yeah. So "a" without the accent is part of the verb avoir.
Mhm.
J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. So il a, he has, elle a, she has, on a, we have, or one has, or whatever it may be. So "a," they are part of the verb avoir, not to be confused with "a" with an accent on it, or going that way, I think, if you're looking in the camera, but anyway. So "a" with a grave accent, meaning in, or to, or at, or something like that, as Pierre-Benoît has explained. So hopefully the question, let me see, it came from Tom. So Tom in California. Thank you, Tom, for your question. We hope that answered your question. Now we've got another question that this time, let me see who it was. It was Christelle in Sydney.
Right.
Christelle's asking a question, a really tricky question.
Ooh.
Christelle, so thank you
Yes.
for your question, Christelle. Go for it, Pierre-Benoît, over to
Right,
you.
so I'm just going to read actually what Christelle is telling us. Hi Mark, hi PD, Pierre-Benoît. I came across avant que and après que many times, and I've tried to use these expressions accurately, but I've heard French natives using them, let's say, differently from what I'd learned and tried to put into good practice. So yeah, here we have to laugh because this happens a lot in languages. Native people make mistakes in their own language. Okay, so we got avant que, before, okay, with a clause, or après que with a clause. If you use avant que, you must use the subjunctive. Avant que tu ne prennes le train. Okay, note the use of ne if you say it fast in spoken French. Avant que tu ne prennes le train, before you take the train. Okay, and that's it. You will not make a mistake if you know your subjunctives. Of course, with Coffee Break French, you can learn lots of subjunctives. We know that. Okay, if you use après que, this is where it's getting very interesting. Après que does not use the subjunctive, and you will hear French people making that mistake because it sounds nice to use a subjunctive. Okay, so après que tu sois rentré sounds lovely, but can we take that away, please? Because you cannot see it. Après que tu es rentré, E-I-S, of course. Okay, so remember that. Après que, you've got to use the indicative mode, not the subjunctive mode. Okay. If you want to if you're not too sure, you think you're gonna make a mistake or whatever, remember you can use après, okay, with a direct noun, okay, après le film, okay, or with a past infinitive, après avoir vu le film. So that would work as well, okay. Some people might prefer to use une fois. Okay, une fois le film fini, nous sommes allés manger une glace. That's beautiful, okay. Mark, I've got to be honest, it's really interesting not to see myself there. Okay.
Yeah, we should explain the setup that we've got here. I can see the screen, I can see myself and Pierre-Benoît. Pierre-Benoît's sitting across from me on the table, but he's just looking into a camera and he can't see the screen or anything like that. So we have got something that we've been working on very, very much over the past fortnight, the past couple of weeks. But it's not quite ready to reveal to the world yet. But this
C'est un secret.
This will help everything for these live videos and indeed for recorded videos. So we're looking forward to using that new resource, but it's not quite ready yet. But you will get a sneak preview of that sometime soon. Okay, so après que and avant que. Tricky one. Thank you to Christelle for bringing this tricky question up. If this is beyond your level, don't worry about that. This is not there to confuse you, but obviously we're here to answer people's questions. Give me 1 second because I have got to cough here and I don't want to cough into the microphone, so give me 1 little second. And I should be back, and hopefully you didn't hear that. Sorry about that, I didn't bring any water with me today. But okay, we've got a couple of other questions, so good to know.
We had a
You
question
have
live
something.
there, okay?
Uh-huh.
There's a wee question here, and it's from Barbara,
Let me
okay?
see if we can get to Barbara's question. We should
And
be able to put this on the screen.
I'm
Here we go.
interested in also getting your opinion, Mark, because
Okay.
I was not too sure how to tackle this. So this is the beauty of being live.
Yeah, it's great. You have to like questions. Let me see if I
How can I add
Yeah.
French to my lessons and remember it all? Okay, and I think it's the rhetorical question. I think Barbara is already learning a different language.
Barbara, I know, is learning Italian. Barbara is one of our Coffee Break Italian listeners, and it's great to see that you're also interested in learning another language. And I think when you're learning two languages at the same time, it is quite a challenging scenario because sometimes you have to, it's easy to get mixed up, especially if they're languages which have similar roots. So French and Italian obviously come from similar roots. So you've got words that sometimes look a little bit the same. Sometimes you've got a word that's one gender in one language and another gender in another language. So, for example, I'm thinking of the word vidéo. En français, on dit une vidéo, n'est-ce pas?
Oui.
Pero en español se dice un video. Entonces, un video is masculine, une vidéo en français is feminine. So sometimes you get things that are slightly confusing in the two languages. But when you're learning two languages at once, I always say that it's really useful to try to compartmentalize that in your mind. And you can do that, for example, working in different rooms on that language or working at different times of the day. So in your morning time, you do your French. In the evening time, you do your Italian. Or even using different coloured notebooks and different coloured pens, for example, when you're trying to associate one language with one colour in your mind and the other language with another colour. There are ways to compartmentalize things, and I always find that works so that my Swedish notebook, for example, is blue and yellow. It has to be. But while I'm working on Chinese, then I've got a red notebook for that. And I like to keep them separate and to keep them at different times. So I don't know whether that's exactly what Barbara was going for with our question, but hopefully that does give Barbara and some other learners who are perhaps working on multiple languages at the same time a couple of ideas.
You vois, moi je pensais aussi à une chose. Sorry, I'll revert back to English. Maybe Barbara, you could watch French movies, for example, because you're kind of chilling out, so to speak. You're not, forcing in a lot of information, and but you can still tune in and not in a passive way, but maybe less actively. You can still learn a lot of French. Okay, or indeed another language. But watching films, listening to songs, the radio, it can be very useful as well.
Très bien, merci.
Je vous en prie.
We've got another question here, and this one's coming from Patricia. And Patricia is asking, in the sentence, il a peur de ne pas réussir.
Oui.
Why is ne pas not around the verb?
Ooh,
so I think what Patricia is suggesting here that it should perhaps be il n'a pas peur de réussir. Is there a difference? Can you say il n'a pas peur de réussir? And is there a difference between that and il a peur de ne pas réussir?
Or was it that ne pas should have been on either side of the infinitive? That's what I was understanding.
Yeah, possibly.
I don't know.
Yeah, two possibilities there. Okay, let's deal with each one. First of all, il a peur de ne pas réussir means he is scared of not being successful, of not succeeding. So, thinking logically, does il a peur de ne pas réussir mean the same thing as il n'a pas peur de réussir? And I think the answer to that question is no. Mm-hmm. He is not afraid of being successful. Is different from he is afraid of not being successful. So there's a logical difference there. Mm-hmm. So coming back to il a peur de ne pas réussir, why is ne pas not around the verb réussir?
Because, well, I would say usually you do not have the ne pas around the infinitive. It does work for other verbs, okay? Il ne peut pas, je n'aime pas, all the basic verbs that you've been using, Patricia, okay? But for an infinitive, you do not put the ne and the pas on either side. Remember, for the past, though, you have to, okay? When you say je n'ai pas acheté quelque chose, okay? It's not je n'ai acheté pas, c'est je n'ai pas acheté. So your ne pas goes on either side of the auxiliary. Yeah. That's always one that people find a tiny bit tricky.
Mm-hmm. Tout à fait,
Okay.
tout à fait.
But for réussir, I can't think just now. As I'm talking to you, I'm trying to think of maybe an exception where the infinitive would have the ne on the one hand and on one side and the pa on the other side. But just now, live, I can't come up with it. So let's make it a rule then. What about you? What about you, Mark?
I can't think of an example where
No.
we would say ne infinitive pa.
No.
I don't think that exists because it's ne pa plus the infinitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully, Patricia, that answers your question. Okay.
Yeah.
Just before we move on, I don't know if we'll get any other French questions specifically, but we do have some people saying hello. So let's say hello back to our listeners who are joining us today. We've got Martin joining us from Howard.
Salut, Martin.
Salut. We've got LJ Content Baldwin. I'm not quite sure about the name. From Georgia in the US. We also have Faye saying hello. Bonjour, Faye.
Bonjour, Faye.
Alex is saying hello, Mark. Nice show. Thank you, Alex. Grace is saying bonjour, Mark, Pierre-Benoît, and tout le monde. Merlin is from Edmonton in Canada and is saying hello. We've got Marion saying bonjour. Farshad is saying bonjour tout le monde. We've got Gerald saying coffee break German listener here watching from Italy. Allora, buongiorno und hallo. Wie geht's? We've got Diane who is saying salut from Vancouver Island in Canada. Jeff is joining us from Gainesville in Florida. Garfield is saying salut. We've got Patricia whose question we've answered.
Mm-hmm. Merci pour la question.
And Patricia is from Belgium. Alejandro is asking a question about the app. Now, this is just an opportunity to see this. Please be aware we do not produce an app. The app that you may have downloaded at some point in the past has been produced by a group of Russian developers who stole all our content and are making that available in an app and are selling it. And we are obviously not getting any of those funds at all. And they are making life very difficult for us and for you. We've gone through the legal process many times with the app stores to have these apps removed, and it is very frustrating. So if you have purchased an app or an in-app purchase for Coffee Break, then it is not from us, it is from a pirate app, basically. Okay, moving on to more positive things. Mitch is saying, great that Pierre-Benoît will be around more. Tiens.
J'espère, à très bientôt.
The original Walk, Talk and Learn series are some of my favourite language videos. His enthusiasm makes them all so fun to watch.
C'est gentil.
So we've got, I think, 2 more videos to go out in our first new series of Walk, Talk and Learn, which is just me, a little bit boring, but this man is back very soon with new content that we filmed for Walk, Talk and Learn, and we've also got some new content for Coffee Break French to go, which Pierre-Benoît is working on very hard at the moment. We've got Marwa saying bonjour. We've got Arlene saying salut. Robert is looking for a 1-minute check. Well, I think the team has already shared the link for 1-minute check on YouTube with you, Robert. So we hope that you find that useful. Faye is saying she loved the Spanish masterclass and looking forward to the French one. Excellent, Faye. Lovely to hear that. And let me see. We've got Dawn saying bonjour. Drew, a Coffee Break Spanish listener. Oh, this is interesting. Tony is on the ferry from, but we don't know where he's on the ferry from. Tony, you'll need to let us know where you're on the ferry from. Maybe it's France. Maybe you're returning from France. Diane saying bonjour, and George is saying hello. We've got Mary saying bonjour de Bretagne. Tony has completed his information here. So Tony is on the ferry from Ouistreham to Portsmouth after 10 glorious days in Normandy.
Ouistreham.
Ouistreham. I apologise. Yeah, I've never heard of that name. Is that
it's actually where the ferry departs from, just next to Caen.
Ah, okay.
So it's actually Ouistreham. Yeah.
Is it got something to do with oysters?
C'est une bonne question et je tâcherai d'y répondre bientôt. Meaning I don't have the answer.
Worry not. Okay, so thank you all of you for saying hello. Arlene just has asked a question here. Where can I find all the Coffee Break French podcasts? All of the Coffee Break French podcast is available anywhere you get your podcasts. So, for example, on the Podcasts app on iOS, so if you use an Apple iPhone or iPad, just go to the Podcasts app and you'll be able to scroll back and see all of the previous series there. You can also find us on the Acast app. We host with Acast, so you can find us on the Acast app. On Spotify, you'll be able to get all the content on Spotify and Google Podcasts. Basically, anywhere you get podcasts, you'll be able to find all the back catalogue of Coffee Break French, starting way back at the absolute beginning of French. So if you've never learned any French before, you'll be able to get all of that content and start learning with me and with Anna, then with Pierre-Benoît, and then other people over the course of time, and build up to the season 4 content, or indeed our en route content, or our magazine content. There's lots and lots and lots of content available for you to use. Okay, I think it is time to move to the final section of our show, and that is for our cultural roundup. So let us bring in our cultural roundup now, and we'll have a quick look at what's going on around the French, German, Spanish, Italian speaking world today. Okay, so back for our cultural roundup. Let me bring in our cultural slide now. If we skip right ahead to our cultural slide here. Today, we're not going to go into any of this in detail because all of this information is in our Coffee Break newsletter. The catch-up newsletter goes out tomorrow, every Friday. We send out the newsletter on a Friday morning, and it will include all the links and all the information about these different cultural events that are happening in the different parts of the world where we're mentioning. So let's take a quick look. A roundup. We're starting with French and the VVR Festival in the Loire Valley, and that stands for Vigne, Vin, Rando. So if you need to find out a little more about Vigne, Vin, and Rando, check out our newsletter. The Stresa Festival on Lake Maggiore in Italy is all about music. It's classical music, and it's one of the biggest classical music festivals in Italy, happening until the 8th of September. Then if you're in Berlin, then you can enjoy the Lange Nacht der Museen. And this is the long night of the museums, where the museums are open late, and you can go and enjoy free entry to many museums in Berlin. So there's more details again in the catch-up newsletter all about this. And finally finishing with a sporting link, and that is La Vuelta a España, the northern Spain cycle race, like the Tour de France, but the Spanish version. And this is happening until the 15th of September. Now, we'll put a link to that in the catch-up newsletter, and we'll also link to an article that we wrote about cycling and how a cycling race can be like learning a language. So all of that will be in tomorrow's catch-up newsletter. And if you've not yet subscribed to the catch-up newsletter, you can do so here, radiolingua.com/newsletter. And there you'll be able to fill in the form, give us your email address, we'll send you this catch-up newsletter every Friday, and you'll be able to check out the texts in English and in the language that you're learning, obviously associated with the particular cultural event that's happening. So that's the catch-up newsletter, radiolingua.com/newsletter. Okay, there's one more thing for us to do today, and I will first of all bring Pierre-Benoît back in here. There we are. There we are. Oh, we just need to get rid of.
Je ne me vois toujours pas, mais c'est pas grave.
First of all, just to come back here, I'm sure you've enjoyed this catch up with Pierre-Benoît, but Grace is asking how about I catch up with Francesca next time. And Francesca's still on holiday, but she gets back next week, so we will definitely be planning a catch up with Francesca at some point soon. I'm not sure if she's watching today. Hopefully she's not. She's on holiday after all. But we will definitely be joining Francesca soon for a catch up, and you can look forward to that. But there is something that we need to do, and that is announce the winners of our coffee break mugs for the summer. Basically, over the summer. Oh, that's not the right slide. Actually, we don't. I forgot to put that slide in. Hang on, let me see if I can get that slide somewhere else. I don't know if I'm going to be able to display it on the screen, but I can certainly show you the names. So let me see, I've got these slides. Yeah, so I am going to come back here, and you can still see me. So, in fact, I'll put mine as well. So we're both in here. And we are delighted to announce that we have 3 winners over the summer. Everyone's been sending postcards in, and first of all, we are delighted to say thank you, or vielen Dank, to Freya. Thank you, Freya, for sending us your postcard from Köln, from Cologne in Germany. And it's been lovely to read your information here about what you have been learning with Coffee Break, both Coffee Break German and indeed Coffee Break French en route. Then, so there's a German mug heading to Freya. There is an Italian mug heading to Gianna, or Jean, or Jean, I'm not quite sure, but Gianna in Italiano, certo. Grazie mille, Gianna. So Jan has been learning Coffee Break Italian and was able to put her Coffee Break Italian to use in Amalfi earlier this year. So thank you for your postcard from Maine, Gianna. And finally, our other winner is Chris. I'm not sure this because it's got personal information on it, like email addresses and stuff. But this is a letter from Chris Fothergill. So thank you, Chris. 谢谢你. Chris is learning Mandarin with us, and he has been traveling in Taiwan and has fallen in love with the language and is learning more Mandarin. So thank you very much indeed, Chris, for sending us that. It's lovely to read your story, and you'll be getting a Chinese mug, a Coffee Break Chinese mug, in the post to you very soon. So Chris is from Canada, we've had Janna from the States, and Freya from, I think, from the UK. So you will all get your mugs. Thank you to you who have sent the postcards, and these have been drawn out of a hat to award a Coffee Break mug, an exclusive Coffee Break French, Spanish, Italian, German, Chinese mug, and you will be getting that very soon.
Vous avez de la chance, ils ont de la chance.
Oui, toi aussi, t'as de la chance. Je sais pas pourquoi je dis ça.
Moi, j'ai pas gagné de mug.
Mais si, t'as une tasse, toi.
Je rigole.
Okay, that is it. We're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us today. If you've got any questions at all about anything to do with Coffee Break languages, then of course you can get in touch. You can leave us a voicemail at coffeebreakquestions.com, or get in touch with us for our questions on the podcast at radiolingua@gmail.com, or simply get us on social media or post a comment here on YouTube or on Facebook. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like this video and to subscribe for more Coffee Break Languages videos. If you're watching on Facebook, then hopefully you're following the Coffee Break pages already. If you are joining us from Instagram or from a Twitter link, then make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram. But for now, we'd like to say thank you. Just before we go, however, we'd like to say joyeux anniversaire, bon cumpleaños feliz, alles Gute zum Geburtstag to Tim, who said it's his birthday today. It's also my son Matthew's birthday today, so happy birthday to Matthew. So happy birthday, Tim. We hope you've enjoyed this on your birthday. We've said happy birthday already. Thank you for joining us. Thank you everyone for joining us. And I've got to finish in another language, but we've released Mandarin today. So I will say, 谢谢, 再见. Thank you and goodbye. Et toi, tu vas dire?
Moi, je vais dire à très bientôt. Au revoir.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed this Coffee Break catch-up, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.